On March 17, 2004, Terrell Owens was signed to the Philadelphia Eagles, making him the most prolific wide receiver in the team's history. However, after trouble in paradise, he was removed from the team because of conduct detrimental to the team. Once again, I've decided to get a few true Eagles fans together to get their reaction to the media circus that was the Terrell Owens fiasco in Philly. Enjoy.
Losing in 04, man, that was depressing. It was depressing, and I was still a young Eagles fan, so I didn't really know the magnitude of us finally winning that first Super Bowl.
That game was just a whirlwind because we were in it the entire time, but it never felt like we had control. Even at times when we had the lead, we never felt comfortable.
You know, what more does this team need to win the big game? You have a great defense. You have a great defensive coordinator. You got players like Jeremiah Trotter, Brian Dawkins, all kinds of studs on this defense. Whereas Donovan McNabb, not good enough. You know, even though we had Terrell Owens and, you know, he goes out for 120 yards in this game after, you know, having the injury.
Biggest difference to me, end of the game, Lombardi trophies out, confetti's in the air. That's the biggest difference. When you lose, you don't want to be walking away from the confetti. You really don't. And honestly, you know, all you hear in the offseason is every time about the Super Bowl losers, how they can't get it done on the big stage. It's every team.
So when they won in 2017, boy, that was a giant weight lifted off my shoulder. I was able to finally breathe and continue on with my life at this point in time.
Oh, man, we loved T.O. when he was on the Eagles. T.O. at 14. T.O. was breaking all kinds of records when he was on the Eagles, and then he got hurt. And honestly, he got hurt, played in the Super Bowl on half a leg, and honestly, it all started to go downhill from there.
Well, the reason why I feel like it was not a match made in heaven is just because you're talking about the ego of Terrell Owens. He has a gigantic ego that is bigger than the city of Philadelphia. One thing about playing in the city of Philadelphia is that you cannot have a personality or an ego bigger than the whole entire city.
And he felt like, I think, he could come to Philadelphia and he would be the guy. Where at the time, Donovan McNabb was the guy. And for whatever reason, that mattered to both guys a little too much. And they wanted to be, you know, the face of the franchise, when realistically, them as a duo could have and should have been the face of the franchise.
They said, oh, well, look what he did with San Francisco. He tore the team apart. They couldn't wait to get rid of him.
The fans loved him. The fans arguably loved him more than Donovan.
And the Eagles fans, they pretty much treated him like royalty. You had all the fans chanting, T.O., T.O. The city loved him. They loved him. They loved his energy until things sort of hit the wall.
I guess their teammate grade was a little low. They didn't really feel the need to respect the other guy's desire to get that limelight, and they kind of fought over it behind the scenes.
And there was a situation where Terrell was pretty much wide open, and then he comes to the huddle and he tells Donovan he was wide open, and Donovan looks at him square in the eye in front of all his teammates and tells him to shut the fuck up.
If McNabb didn't look his way, he felt that it was that reason, had nothing to do with him being open or not, because he assumed he was open on every play. It was, you know, he won't let me be as great as I can be and should be because he doesn't want me to take his spotlight.
That's where I feel the real problem is. And I feel like people are not really realizing how much of a problem that one instance was.
I think he was wrong because honestly, like, he had just gotten a really nice deal. Sure, it could have been a little higher, why not? But when he signed that contract in the offseason of 2004, that extension, he knew what he was getting himself into.
But when I come into an organization, the franchise quarterback just set a new franchise record in passing touchdowns, mainly because of me being there as well. I do think that I should be able to get more money now just from what I was able to amplify on this offense.
But yeah, it's something that at the time I think we all frowned about, but it really is just ahead of its time because it's something in the modern NFL you see all the time. So while we didn't love it at the time, I can't really blame him for it because it's just the way the league ended up going. If anything, he was ahead of his time.
And then he plays in the Super Bowl and has a good game, and then he's like, oh, I want a new contract, I want a big contract, I did this and I did that. He was very self-centered. And the selfishness and the self-centeredness, and because of that, that's where I think he was wrong. And of course, his agent, you know, Drew Rosenhaus, is going to push for that, knowing him.
You want him to be involved in the game, and he wants to be involved in the game. He wants to get a lot of touches. When he doesn't, he will react in a way that most people really don't want to see.
Once T.O. got there, that really made us into a passing team. I'm T.O., I'm asking for more money, so I do not blame T.O. for demanding that money, that contract in that offseason.
And I feel like if McNabb is a better leader, he would have found a better way to handle this situation with Terrell. To be honest, I feel like Terrell really started to put himself way above the team. Terrell, he was obviously selfish.
That sit-ups in the driveway, right? Whenever you talk about Terrell Owens, it always has to come up, right? I mean, now I look back at it and laugh, and it really does epitomize everything about that team and that situation. And like I said, you can't really talk about T.O. without talking about doing sit-ups in the driveway.
When I was watching all that unfolded, I just felt like, okay, well, it's T.O. being T.O. The way the media portrayed T.O. at the time was just a really huge personality that's going to run his mouth, but when he gets onto the football field, he means business.
But, you know, with Terrell, I just think he overdid it. He wanted to be the center of attention. He wanted everyone to know what was going on. The guy was ordering pizza for the reporters. He wanted them to be there. He wanted coverage for that, and he just became a huge distraction.
But seeing it unfold now and watching it later on today, it was just like, wow, he was the original Antonio Brown.
But for him to just respond by doing sit-ups in the driveway was just one of the legendary, moments that you saw from football really of that era. After a while, it really did divide the fan base. Are you a McNabb guy or are you a Terrell Owens guy? And really the argument you would make if you were a McNabb guy is that you didn't necessarily need T.O. because you did finally get over the hump and beat Atlanta and get to the Super Bowl without him playing.
And just due in large part of just having a good head coach and a good quarterback in McNabb, I felt like at the time, when you have a good head coach and a good quarterback, you're going to win a lot of games. And I was just always confident with the Eagles, always making the playoffs with or without Terrell Owens.
I think Terrell Owens was definitely, even throughout the whole course of the 2005 season, I think T.O. was very much needed, actually. You could just tell, like, the offense was just not the same.
We needed to move on, and in this case, I would say you're better off without Terrell Owens in that regard, even though you're losing a lot of talent at the receiver position.
Terrell Owens, we needed him, I felt. And then when we released him, I was just like, whatever, obviously, like, it's going to make us grow as a team a little bit better, and maybe we can get someone in the draft or free agency. But generational talent, you're always going to need a generational talent like that.
I think that core group that we had behind him, the Todd Pinkstons and the Greg Lewises of the world, loved those guys, watched them play for a long time. But I think it was clear that was not a Super Bowl caliber wide receiver core.
That was after Terrell Owens. We tried some experiment with Dante Stallworth and Kevin Curtis, but hey, we still managed to make the playoffs, the following years as well. We did not necessarily need him, but sure, he would have probably gotten us back to that Super Bowl and see if we would have won it.
But there were some good wins that we had, mainly against the AFC West.
And the Matt Ware blocked field goal. It was one of those games Andy Reid was calling like a million passing plays and hardly any running plays, and it was like that kind of game.
I remember also that game in particular, we were stopping a prime LaDainian Tomlinson. LaDainian Tomlinson, LT couldn't get nothing going on that day. And this, like I said, this was a prime LaDainian Tomlinson, so that was a big deal.
And our defense actually was playing very well that day. And then they could only, when you're going 3 and out, and not getting anything done, eventually the defense is going to crack, and they did. Chargers scored a couple touchdowns to take the lead, and then it was just looking like we were going to lose the game.
Then you're talking about the drama unfolding. So when Quentin Michael blocked that field goal and Matt Ware took it back, I remember just looking at a random strangers, face to face, and we're screaming at the top of our lungs here, hugging each other. And like I said, we don't know each other, but we just know that we both love the Philadelphia Eagles, so come celebrate with me.
I really like that comeback against the Chiefs. We were getting killed in that game. Chiefs were destroying a 17-0, and then we scored, and then D'Angelo Hall gets the ball and runs back for it. All of a sudden, we come storming back, and this is when we had T.O. in this game. This is before most of this happened, but he played, and we're driving down, and we're just, and all of a sudden, we're destroying them and beating them. And
that's for sure a memorable moment. I do like that Chiefs win, though. The Chiefs is one of the best comeback victories I've seen as an Eagles fan as well. A very underrated win throughout our team's history, I'll say. A very, very underrated win.
But after that, like week 8 through 11, just 4 straight losses, kind of broke the back of this team. They ended up picking up some wins down the road, but those 4 losses in a row really buried us at the bottom of the division.
Injuries. I'll say injuries. You're talking about the drama as well with T.O. in the offseason, but that first game kind of set the tone with McNabb getting that sports hernia. You know, we're going to be playing with the very limited Donovan McNabb for the rest of the season.
Ryan Westbrook was lost for the year on a broken ankle. Corral Buckhalter was lost for the year with an injury.
Mike McMahon was playing for us, and, you know, he had to start 9 games due to Donovan McNabb being injured. It was tough. Guy really couldn't play football. He completed 45% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 8 interceptions.
No T.O., no Pinkston. We had Greg Lewis and Billy McMillan as our starting receivers.
The curse of being the Super Bowl loser. That tends to happen. When you lose the Super Bowl, that following year, it just doesn't work out.
So it was maybe hard to expect going straight back to the Super Bowl, but after being, you know, perennial playoff contenders and going to the NFC Championship game all those years in a row, to finish 6-10 and 4th in the division and not make the playoffs, I don't think it's too harsh to say, yeah, 05 was a failure.
What eventually got Terrell Owens kicked off the team was dividing the locker room. You know, once you're that common denominator for team issues and whatnot, that's a gateway to be stepping out of that organization.
But the guy was bashing the team publicly.
Yeah, I seem to remember him wearing a Michael Irvin jersey when he's still a member of the Eagles, which of course is a sin to say the least.
Personally, I think the final straw was when Hugh Douglas and Terrell Owens supposedly fought in the locker room, like the Michael Irvin obviously reported it.
He had confrontations with the coaches. He called Andy Reid out for his coaching.
You're ruining the chemistry, you're ruining the team flow, you know, you're ruining that whole entire aspect of being in a team. You're having individuals now speaking more so of their mind instead of individually. They're all collectively coming together.
It was just an accumulation of things that just led to one boom.
Eventually, there was the straw that broke the camel's back, and Owens was pretty much out of here. Well, obviously, I wasn't thrilled that he was going to be in our division because I view him as a great player, one of the best receivers to ever play this game.
I felt as if T.O. traded us. That's what I think. I think he just... I didn't hate T.O. until he signed with the Cowboys.
That was actually the match made in heaven right then and there. You're talking about Terrell Owens. Well, what's bigger than Terrell Owens? Well, the Dallas Cowboys. They're America's team. The media loves them. Jerry Jones, his ego is just as big as Terrell Owens' ego. So that was a match made in heaven. I for sure grabbed my popcorn.
But it's one thing to leave the team. It's another to go to the division rival and the Dallas Cowboys at that. If he goes to the Redskins, we're probably not talking about this all these years later, but the fact that he went to the Cowboys straight off the Eagles, it felt like it was at a spike.
Like, he signed with the #1 most hated rival, the team who he did the hollow on the star, and he celebrated on that star. He's had his best games down there, and then he's going to sign with them.
I feel like Donovan just wasn't held accountable. And I feel like that bothered Terrell, and he wanted to stick it to him. And if I was in the situation, it would be hard for me to resist the temptation to try to get back at somebody like Donovan McNabb or Andy Reid or whoever he's trying to get back at, or it's the whole Eagles organization.
The team was okay at the time, no disrespect to like Tony Romo, who eventually became the starting quarterback there, but there was no reason to think that team was going to be better equipped to handle Terrell Owens than Philadelphia.
I for sure grabbed my popcorn to watch that Dallas Cowboys whole entire circus from 06 to 08.
The Week 5 game, for whatever reason, always sticks in my head.
When T.O. came back to town in 2006, T.O.'s return, that was a zoo. It was chaotic.
Oh, man. They were chanting OD, 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 OD. Because T.O. a month beforehand OD'd. And the fans are really... It was... What an electric atmosphere that was at the Link that night.
These guys go from loving T.O. to hating him in a blink of an eye like that. And, next thing you know, the fans are in the stands. They're like, T.O. sucks. T.O. sucked, and that's why you gotta love Philly fans.
I remember stopping by the Dallas Cowboys hotel the day before. Eagle fans were there just to boo the Dallas Cowboys and Terrell Owens. Okay, it was more so Eagle fans than Cowboy fans at that Dallas Cowboys hotel just to boo the Dallas Cowboys.
You know, it was an electric atmosphere. Hank Baskett had a 90-yard touchdown. Obviously, the pick six late to seal it after Dallas had gotten a huge penalty. Michael Lewis had a 52-yard penalty to give the Cowboys a first and goal with 30 seconds left up when we were up 7 points.
Obviously, you know the rest of the story of that game. The Little Shepherd return for touchdown.
The Little Shepherd returning that pick six, 106 yards to the house. I think he's still running if we go to Texas Stadium now.
Just a lot of action in that game, and what a game that was. And you know, obviously it felt like the Eagles got their revenge with the win. So
the Eagles swept the Dallas Cowboys, and that was it. The Eagles made sure to bring him a warm welcome and whatnot, but it wasn't a welcome that he had hoped for.
Obviously, the Eagles did eventually rebound, and the Cowboys had a lot of great years. So I don't know who really won in that dispute with T.O. going to Dallas. I think we ended up rebounding nicely. It did take a little while, but for 06, it definitely felt like we won the whole debacle the way it all shook out.
But we got the last laugh. We got that last laugh.